Today I'm going to speak about the causes and influential factors underlying addiction. Gaining perspective on what is causing people to become addicted can naturally help you and others to transcend addiction. To start, let's recap a definition for addiction. Addiction is a compartmentalized term, whereby its true nature has been reduced to only certain habits of a more extreme form, such as drug and alcohol addiction, or sex and pornography addiction, or even gambling addictions. However, as I have shared in previous episodes, this phenomenon goes beyond the popularized and stigmatized addictions. And this point is important because people act like they're allergic to even the word addiction and they fear learning about it. But I think that we should consider, what are we afraid to see here? For a full definition of addiction, I'd say addiction is a ritualistic behavior that enchants a person's sensory desires, blindly leading one into a self-absorbed illusion of uncontrollable, obsessive compulsiveness that progresses despite negative consequences, personality changes, and blockage from the true self in the endless antagonistic pursuit of instant gratification and relief from a particular feeling or affair. As humans, we have countless attachments of every kind, such as attachments to comforts, vices, things, habits, and preferences. Attachments to getting rewarded, competing, performing, achieving, and attachments to things like dramatizing, negativity, complaining, resenting, and victimizing too. Addiction happens in the dependency to these things to feel good and to function at any cost, losing control of one's behavior and in the absence feeling withdrawal symptoms. So addiction is the extreme end of attachment, but to a more detrimental and destructive degree. There is a dual relationship that forms. A thing is addicted to you, not only you attached to it. Attachments are inevitable. It is a part of the human experience to have and to release attachments, but what causes someone to become addicted? Why do some people get addicted to something while someone else does not get addicted to that same thing? That is the question. What causes addiction? And does one need to identify the cause to overcome addiction? Now, although the causes of addiction can likely be narrowed down to a definite answer, not everybody agrees on the causes for addiction, and that's because people experience addiction in different ways and for different reasons, at least on the surface. Causal perspectives for addiction depend on one's personal experiences with addiction, as well as their worldview and their beliefs about life circumstances in general. We tend to measure and assess the progression of daily reality in respect to how much we can see and understand of our experience and reality. For instance, whether or not a person believes in creation or evolution, free will or determinism, or nature versus nurture, whether you believe in karmic retribution or God's wrath, law of attraction or cause and effect, happenstance or fate, or coincidence or synchronicity, whether you believe in the power of mind over matter or matter over mind, the invisible evidence or the invisible evidence, individual or collective reasoning, linear timelines or changing timelines, or one ephemeral life or reincarnation and eternal life, and so on. These reality concepts and many more direct your views on causation. For instance, a person who sees life as happening to them versus happening because of them might see addiction and the consequences as not their fault, as in there are external factors that are leading to this effect. A person believes that they are addicted because of certain external circumstances. Or a person who sees life circumstances as random occurrences on the surface as opposed to a chain of connected events might see the consequences of addiction as more incidental or coincidental versus consequential or evidential. Looking at causes through concentric circles, I will discuss 6 realms of stuff theorized to be behind the phenomenon of addiction. Number 1. Addiction is caused by personal stuff. Starting with the inner circle, the causes of addiction are directly linked to the amount of unresolved matters and burdens within oneself. Every human carries burdens within them of a particular karmic or traumatic makeup that emit vibrations of distress within the mind and body. These burdens and distress signals create constant stress and weigh down the brain and body, eventually to the point of chronic conditions. The stress and discomfort drives people toward vices and habits to alleviate not only the discomfort, but often the responsibility as well. The causes of addiction also stem from personal attachments to things and ways to produce a good feeling and mood and boost energy, attachments to desires, pursuits, and achievements, attachments to feeling good and having fun, attachments to image, reputation, and status, attachments to avoiding the truth and guarding one's burdens, and attachments to keeping things as they are by taking the easy road. Attachments set the stage for addictions. The causes of addiction also stem from negativity, that is, being in the negative. When people spend more time in a negative place than they do in a positive place, this sets the stage for addiction. The negative side of life is dim, it's limiting, it's fearful, it's judgmental, insecure, and jealous, and these are all attributes that the addiction phenomenon feeds on. There are lots of theories for addiction. Personally, through my work, I've identified that the core issues behind addiction exist within. Of course, it depends on your worldview and your level of spiritual understanding. I have identified these core issues as burdens, attachments, and negativity. So the more burdens, attachments, and negativity that a person carries, well, the more susceptible to addiction they will be. Turning to number 2 now. Addiction is caused by historical stuff. To understand the causes of addiction, we have to take into consideration the history of a person in terms of their journey traveled thus far, their ancestral lineage, and the general roots that make up society today. Every human being is so much more than they show up to be in any particular moment. A person who is 28 years old, for instance, has lived over 10,000 days on this planet. Before that, existing in the womb for 9 months, taking on a particular genetic and ancestral structure beyond our comprehension. Who knows what kind of karma and trauma comes with a person at birth on top of what a person accrues during this life? Taking it a step further, if you believe in eternal life or past lives or parallel realities, or say trips outside of this time and space, the historical blueprint upon one's soul would be so immense. Historically, ancestral rituals have taught people ways to get relief, find enjoyment and pleasure, manage pain and stress, treat symptoms and illness, and access spiritual realms beyond everyday practice, all of which have included substances and behaviors that have become addictive. Looking at the roots of society today, historical factors have also taught rites of passage and how to celebrate and face major turning points in life, many of which create vulnerabilities to addiction in the modern world today. Rites of passage or turning points are causes for celebrations like birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, graduations, marriages, getting a new home, having children, getting promotions, and so on, many of which promote the use of substances. Then you have turning points in life that promote the excessive use of substances, like New Year's Eve, turning 21, and having bachelor or bachelorette parties. Other turning points are those that are unexpected and unwanted, like the loss of a loved one, loss of a pet, loss of a job, or loss of anything. Also, going through a divorce, whether as a parent or a child, any kind of midlife crisis, long-standing unmet needs, and stressful situations that go unmanaged. Addictive patterns are weaved into the traditions, beliefs, and paradigms of former generations, which then move into the minds and life of younger generations. Through belief structures and learned behavior, addiction is passed down through lineage, generations, cultures, and families. Turning now to number 3, addiction is caused by familial stuff. Here, the causes of addiction are most commonly observed through adverse childhood experiences within the family system. Regardless of what may have led to a particular upbringing, just looking at the emotional relationship between parents and their children, the ongoing family dynamics throughout one's formative years, and the expectations of each member within the family, we can see a significant relationship between childhood issues and adult behavior. A number one cause of addiction mentioned in the literature is the lack of bonding and attachment between either parent and a child. This can manifest in apathetic or neglectful ways, or in more traumatic or even abusive ways. Or sometimes the parents, they are present and they are attentive and they're doing the best that they can, but the child cannot receive or feel that love. Lack of emotional attachment and bonding to parents and any kind of trauma in childhood affects brain development and the development of healthy coping skills, increasing susceptibility to heavier addictions. Additionally, unhealthy family dynamics in an unhealthy family environment also increases a person's chances of turning to addictions. What impacts a child is their negative perception of themselves within their experiences in the family, and their lack of sense of security, nourishment, and attention. Children need stability, reliability, and predictability, as well as positive stimulation, learning opportunities, and recognition. Sometimes heavy addictions stem from normal-seeming family dynamics. However, a person may not have felt as though they belonged, or the conditions may not have felt favorable for them. So it's not necessarily the parent's fault when somebody becomes addicted. This is just life. But the quality of family dynamic continues to play a role in the susceptibility of addiction for people throughout life. Whether the family dynamics are more conflicting and fractured, or whether they are more enmeshed and codependent. Whether there are strict rules against addictive things, or a constant reinforcement of addictive things. Either way, people can be drawn toward addiction through either extreme of family dynamics. Other factors during childhood that increase susceptibility to addiction include the more extreme scenarios of neglect, trauma, all types of abuse, loss of loved ones, injuries or chronic diagnoses, loss of mobility, major missed opportunities, and other painful experiences. Feeling a void within, children and family members will learn ways to soothe themselves and to meet their needs using or relying on external sources and habits. Turning now to number 4, addiction is caused by interpersonal stuff. The causes of addiction can be tied into interpersonal relationships. People learn addictive ways of thinking and being from each other, and often these addictive tendencies are encouraged and reinforced within a social network. Not only do people teach each other to rely on vices, but all the conflicts and the unresolved issues and grievances can create an immense amount of stress and difficult emotion, which drives people toward distractions to escape and numb the pain of these frictions. Additionally, people use a number of addictive things as a way to open up and to connect and to collaborate. The euphoric highs encourage socialization, and it helps people to build trust in each other. People are able to take on new roles and create meaning, and they feel like they are seen and heard. So, people are drawn toward addictions interpersonally, through social modeling and peer pressure, through difficult and unbearable times, and as a way to fit in, connect, and get recognized by others. Addictions are known to provide social proof, oddly enough. Turning to number 5 now. Addiction is caused by societal stuff. While addiction may or may not originate from the material world, there are certainly a great number of external factors that lay the foundation for addiction in society. In today's modern world, we live in an addictive culture. The very fabric of our civilian lives is built on attachments and addictive ways of thinking. Media and entertainment, for instance, are saturated with addictive and lustful things, constantly seducing people to a narrative and to a worldview that promotes an addictive lifestyle. Everything mainstream, in fact, and often alternative too, seems to promote addiction. Addictions are modeled through information outlets, internet giants, industry icons, social media trends, news networks, commercials and marketing campaigns, billboards, print media, leading brands, as well as movies, TV shows, video games, top hits, bestsellers, celebrity magazines, top podcasts, major league sports, bars and nightclubs, casinos, theatrical performances, celebratory events, concerts and festivals, you name it. All of these things are filled with addictive and seductive content. Throughout media and entertainment, there are images and phrases illustrating the use of addictive substances. From sugar and junk foods to caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol, the whole list of street drugs, pharmaceutical and over-the-counter drugs, imagery of scandalous intimacy and sexual affairs, enticements for increased performance, materialism, achievement, wealth, and status, and taking the advantage over others and getting to the top. Another way that addiction is perpetuated by societal influences is by mass manipulation of human consciousness and behavior, as I've been talking about through this series. Stakeholders of commerce, for instance, they deeply study and understand how to get people hooked to their product and service. That means that they consciously and purposely encourage patterns of addiction. The economy, too, thrives on the sales of goods and services. The more people spend and the more predictable this spending becomes, the higher the profits for certain groups. These groups promote addictive things. In fact, the world's largest industries hold power by getting and keeping people addicted to their product or service. Think about these industry giants operating the top information and e-commerce websites such as Google and Amazon, or top manufacturers and traders of non-durable and durable goods, the above-ground big pharma and the underground drug trafficking. Same thing with the pornography and sex trafficking, and other black market things, as well as video games, oil and gas, stocks and finance, you name it. All of these industries promote and thrive with addiction. Now, beyond media and entertainment and commerce and economic influences, there are a number of private interests that are operating in society today, encouraging and benefiting off of an addicted culture. These private interest agendas maintain hidden information, unknown powers, control over the masses, and the upper hand in social affairs. Their method of fulfillment is getting and keeping people addicted and asleep. I could also mention the increasing standards and pressures placed among college students and young adults, and the competitive race to make it to the top invites the use of performance drugs and activities to get a leg up in life, or sometimes just barely to keep up. So, within society, there are a number of external factors perpetuating the phenomenon of addiction. We live in an addictive culture, constantly bombarded with the programming and the temptations of media, entertainment, advertisements, and materialisms, as well as the desires to have more and the opportunities to cut corners to get ahead or just to keep up. Now, turning to the last point, number 6, addiction is caused by spiritual stuff. The spiritual stuff encompasses and impacts everything else. A person's degree of alignment and connection to their true self, their original essence, and divine source impacts awareness to truth, purpose, and principle in life. Spiritually, when people are absent, not awake, and unaware, there is delusion and disconnection of mind, body, and spirit. And addiction thrives here because addiction is based on a lie about where connection comes from. Another underlying cause of addiction is fear itself. Fear is the opposite of faith, a primary spiritual principle. Existential anxiety is often identified under a number of conditions. Fear of the unknown, fear of pain and suffering, fear of failure and insignificance, fear of responsibility and leadership, fear of anything fuels the cycle of addiction. Last to mention, from a spiritual perspective, addiction happens in the external seeking and searching for internal fulfillment. The spiritual knowing within, it yearns for greater purpose and healthier ways, but often people are not aware of their heart's higher calling. Until people are ready to claim their higher life's path, well, these inner voices and that reckoning inside will be either numbed or escaped through addictive rituals. So things like spiritual disconnection, fear and existential anxiety, and even just the pressures of the heart's calling can create a level of discomfort in the mind and the body, enticing people to take addictive shortcuts so that they can feel a sense of connection and faith in things and to create meaning and purpose. In summary, there are many causal theories for addiction, which depend on the scope in which addiction is being observed. Starting in the center of self, addiction is caused by one's personal unresolved stuff. Outward from personal, addictive tendencies stem from historical and ancestral, and then familial and interpersonal, and then societal and cultural, and then spiritual factors. Now, all of these factors that I just touched on can easily keep a person in a state of distress, delusion, doubt, disconnection, depression, and deflection, and thus creating and maintaining the conditions for addiction. Now, to integrate this episode, what factors led to addiction for you or for another? What do these factors suggest for recovery? And how can understanding causal factors help you to better support yourself or others through recovery? All right, this concludes this episode on the theoretical causes for addiction. In the next episode, I will speak to the benefits of addiction so we can better understand why people allow themselves to become addicted in the first place. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll see you next time.